All right, team, joining us from Houston, Texas, where he is my fellow host on KPRC and also the host of I'm Right with Jesse Kelly on Pluto TV's The First, Mr. Jesse Kelly. Sir, I know it's nice to be right, but probably not so great to be right about how we're destroying the country on purpose, right? That's a tough one.
There's nothing I love more in the world than being right because I'm right so often. Yes, but to answer your question, there's nothing I've been less happy to be right about than this right here. I told everybody, I don't know how everyone couldn't see it, but the second they announced we were going to lock down the country, I said, you can't do that. A $20 trillion economy with more moving parts than anybody can imagine doesn't pause. You either let it roll or you slam it into the side of a wall at 200 miles an hour, and we slammed it into the side of a wall, and now we're in bad trouble.
It seems to me like people are realizing not only is the hiding from the virus idea flawed, because when you stop hiding, the virus is still out there, right? I mean, this is beyond the 15 days. I've said, and I think that still it holds that the 15 days we could have managed, whether it was a good idea or not. I'll put that aside. We could manage 15 days. Beyond that, this is getting to be completely insane. But people are also seeing that just like when you go outside now, yes, the virus is still out there. When you try to open up economic activity, it's not like, oh, okay, now all the restaurants just flip their lights on and all the stores just have their goods and wares and people are lining up to buy them. No,
it's completely, nothing could be further from the truth. And I don't know whether this is a university problem or what the deal is with education in America, Buck, but I see all these people on our own side, by the way. I understand there are people out there, it's the left. No. We had most of the right sign on to this stuff too. And again, I don't know whether this is at universities, they're not teaching business. I understand they're teaching economics, but I think they really don't teach business. You can't point to a restaurant. You can't point to a business and say, close your doors and you can open again in a month. That doesn't work at all. The costs don't stop. Costs keep building up, and you always have to outpace the costs with the revenue you bring in. That's called profit. And when you've slaughtered my revenue, when you've dropped it to zero or near zero and the costs haven't stopped, you've finished me. You've completely finished me. And not only that, this business, because of what they do, they keep these people in business. And they, in turn, keep these people in business. And they keep these people in business. It all works in sync. It all works together. If you closed even just Major League Baseball for one season, that's something Major League Baseball, you can't imagine the amount of business loss and job loss around the country that you would think is unconnected to Major League Baseball that you would see. Instead, we pointed at the whole economy and told them to screw off.
I'm sitting here and I'm shocked. I'm angry. New York just got told by Governor Cuomo, who is heroic for being an idiot that's made terrible decisions, apparently. I mean, I don't know. In the first week or two, when we were told that basically maybe 2-3 million people were going to die, anybody that had a calm voice and sounded like they were in command was getting a pass from the media. And for most folks, I can understand that. But now that we've seen what the actual policy decisions were and the outcomes, I mean, Cuomo put people with COVID in nursing homes. Over 5,000 people in New York alone have died of COVID in nursing homes, including specifically when they had to take people back from the hospital that they thought had COVID-19. And New York is in lockdown until June. I just want to know, why not just tell us now, Jesse, in some of these blue states that they'll lock us down? As California, at least Los Angeles, has said, let's go for the middle of July. Let's be real safe. Let's really make sure the economy is completely on its knees.
Well, the thing is, they're not incentivized to do otherwise, Buck. I mean, you and I can scream all day long about Cuomo and what an idiot he is with his nipple rings and everything else. But the point is, Cuomo's in no danger of getting bounced out of office. New York is a solidly blue state. Democrats are going to hold power there forever. He can torpedo his own state's economy. The media is still going to make this guy out to be some kind of hero, even though he literally launched the plague into the homes of the people who are most vulnerable for it. And he's going to come out just fine. The only person these Democrat governors are really hurting is Donald Trump, and they know it. That's why they're all staying locked down.
I think that, you've talked before, and we've discussed offline before, about the national divorce between left and right, that, between blue and red, that may be coming. I think that this situation is going to be, among many other issues and concerns and problems, but this situation is going to create the largest outflow from blue states to red states that I think we've seen in the last 100 years. I mean, I just feel like blue states are going to, because anybody that understands how stupid these policies are isn't going to want to be subjected to them again. And Jesse, I keep telling everybody, the plan for the flu and COVID season that we're facing is going to be shutting down again. I mean, everyone can pretend that but that's what they think we're going to do.
Look, you're sadly right, but I'll tell you something else, Buck, and this is going to sound like I'm going full tinfoil on my head, okay? So just bear with me. Don't scream.
Oh, let it rip, Alex Jones. Let it rip.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. I can see a scenario where this entire thing ends the United States of America, period. And here's what I mean by that. You are now at the point where you are way past the 100% mark of debt to GDP. We are now running up a $4 trillion debt this year. We have another $3 trillion bill coming. Republicans they're already caving. Well, this is debt on arrival. I mean, kind of. Well, I guess we kind of like it. So let's just assume that's going to pass. So we're piling on massive amounts of debt. Well, at the same time, the nation has torpedoed its revenue generation, meaning that debt you're piling on was bad enough, but you're actually launching it into outer space because you're not bringing in any money. And if you get to a point where we cannot pay our creditors back, you are one small thing away from an economic collapse. And I mean collapse. It'll make the recession in 2008, 2009 look like a boom. You get to that point in time, forget about this national divorce stuff you and I have joked about before. That's the breakup of the country. We'll end up with 6 different countries here.
Speaking of Jesse Kelly, host of I'm Right with Jesse Kelly on Pluto TV's channel 248, The First, and also my fellow host on KPRC Houston, a wonderful radio station, and we get to speak to some great Houstonians. And when the world stops ending, if it stops ending, I'm going to have to come down there and visit the KPRC folks, and Jesse can show me the best barbecue place in the Houston area, assuming that we're allowed to go to barbecue places, which who knows at this point. I think you can do takeout. And so tell me that. I mean, I have this. I'm here in New York, and I'm trying to, as you know, Jesse, right now we're talking to people all over the country. I mean, in states everywhere. How's it going in Texas? How's your reopen? You guys are certainly well ahead of where New York City is. How is it looking for you so far?
Well, it's going exactly like you'd expect in a state like Texas. The governor gave these guidelines that you could open at 25%. Certain businesses could. So, of course, they opened. And don't get me wrong, restaurants are trying. They'll have 1 out of every 3 tables available to sit down. But people are flocking into them. Last weekend, because I'm now the ultimate suburban white person, I went furniture shopping, and I went to a restaurant, and I went to Target. The ultimate suburban white person to-do list. And every single one of them had full parking lots, full of people. The roads are now getting packed. Traffic is back. Texans are out in droves, and it ain't at 25%. So whatever permission the governor is giving us with all their, newfound authority in this country, Texans are out.
Well, it's funny to me because I get a lot of pushback, as you do as well, on social media from the lockdown consensus. And one of the things they'll always say when I say, look, we need to open up is you first, like, oh, sick burn. I'm sitting here, I'm like, yeah, I've run the stats, looked at the numbers, looked at the data, and I'm not going to hide in my apartment forever because I have a 1 in 10,000 chance of dying from a respiratory infection that's out there. Not going to do it. So I will go out. I will shop. I will spend money. These morons can stop saying you first. I want to be first. Sign me up.
Yeah, look, let's be honest, Buck. What we've seen, this economic destruction, which I'm not going to go over again. We talked about it enough today. But this economic destruction we've seen, this is all over a virus that by any metric at this point in time has a 99.99% survivability rate. If you had told anybody at any point in history, in any nation, in the history of the world, that a country would destroy its own economy for a virus with a 99.99% survivability rate, they would have laughed in your face and told you there's no way any nation on earth would be dumb enough to do that. And yet we did it as a matter of policy, and people are still defending it.
Why is it going as slowly as it is even in Texas? I mean, you guys have a Republican governor who seems like he's reasonably squared away. You have plenty of people that clearly want to enjoy their freedoms. Is everyone just too frightened to go ahead of the federal guidance and say, I mean, Governor Kemp and Trump, as much as we love the Trump agenda, Trump kind of threw him under the bus a little bit, was like, I think Governor Kemp's moving too fast. And guess what? Georgia's fine. And it's been over 2 weeks. You think that the politicians just won't take the risk?
Yes, they're all risk averse, and what they're all trying to do is thread the needle. And I'm sorry, Buck. Everybody knows I'm an anti-leftist, far right-wing hack. I don't try to be a journalist. But let's be honest about this. Republicans, from top to bottom, have been putrid during this whole thing. All of them leading from behind, going along with whatever the public seems to be saying. Well, they're scared, so I can't really say. They're all trying to have their cake and eat it, too. And look, I even like my governor, like you pointed out. But open up at 25%? He actually said, we're going to open up at 25%, and we're going to test it for 2 weeks and see if there's any kind of a spike. We're just going to dip our toesies in the water, and if it's safe, as long as no one gets hurt, then maybe we'll do a little. What? One, you don't even have the authority to tell businesses they have to shut down like that, and especially because it's clearly not an emergency. Two, open up and let people make the choice. That's all I want, is letting people make the choice. But the GOP, look, they lack balls.
Jesse Kelly, everybody. Go listen to him on KPRC Houston and also watch on Pluto TV's channel 248, The First. I'm Right with Jesse Kelly, also the Buck Sexton Show. So you basically got a dynamic duo on KPRC Houston and on Pluto TV 248, The First. Jesse Kelly, go eat some red meat and wave some American flags around your yard for us, because here in New York, it's just feeling like the commies are in control.
Y'all hang in there, Buck.
Thanks, man.
Today, we're announcing a groundbreaking initiative to replenish and modernize our strategic national stockpile. The cupboards were bare. You've heard me say it a lot. When we came into this administration, those cupboards were bare. I've come to this major medical supply distribution hub because the workers here at Owens and Minor have a critical role in this national effort.
So we're replenishing stockpiles. Trump is moving on that one. And there's also Operation Warp Speed. The president gave a press conference about this one today, where they're going to get ready to manufacture doses of vaccine. Before we even know if we have a vaccine that works, we're going to be manufacturing a whole lot of vaccine. And they're trying to get under Operation Warp Speed. They've got GlaxoSmithKline, former GlaxoSmithKline head Salawi, Moncef Salawi, who is going to be leading that project. They're going to try to get 300 million doses of a COVID-19 vaccine by the end of the year, which, look, if they pull this off, it'll be one of the most amazing, scientific. I mean, they're calling it a Manhattan Project for antivirus efforts, right? I mean, this is what it needs to be. I mean, there is nothing more important in the world right now than beating this. You notice how I haven't spent that much time today, because we've already talked a lot about the deep state and Flynn and all that, and I cover that, and I'm on that and have been for years. But this is the most important thing that's happening in the world, as we know, and I don't ever want us to be stewing in the agony of what's happening to the planet because of this virus. But I also think that we always need to be making sure that we stay focused on the policy response, the economics, that we stay connected with each other on what's going on here with regard to the virus, because while the journos can play games about whether a Trump aide wore a mask yesterday or not, or what Pence did at some facility, whatever it is, we need to focus on how we get past this and get our lives back. So 300 million doses of vaccine by the end of the year, and they're testing many different candidates right now. And they're starting the production of them before clinical trials. So the idea is that you're going to have a lot of bullets in the chamber, so to speak, against the virus. And in this case, you're really going to, end up deciding, you're going to have to load up a lot of chambers, a lot of different rounds from a lot of different viruses, ready to fire as soon as you find out that this thing is safe and works against the virus. And this is pulling together private, big pharma. Oh, big pharma, the enemy. Yeah, big pharma may save the planet right now. So maybe we should stop trashing them in the media all the time. Oh, they're so greedy and horrible. I mean, yeah, there's abuses. There's abuses in every industry. Look at journalism, for heaven's sakes. It's like a disgusting sewer of idiocy all the time. Government agencies going together with pharmaceutical companies. They're going to try to cut the development time, according to Fortune here, for a vaccine by as much as 8 months. Wow. Look, if they pull this off, it would be amazing. But we can't celebrate early. That's psychologically catastrophic. You can't celebrate early and then find out you didn't win the race, right? You can't do that. And I think that we still need to assume that we're going to do right now what is best for the country based on the data we have, and not hope for as I said earlier, the lottery ticket. I mean, what they're telling me here, what this is, the lottery ticket analogy still stands, but this is we're spending like $1 million on lottery tickets. And we're throwing so much in terms of resources. I mean, we've never done this before. So maybe take some, I also want us to always be focused on the positive here. I mean, I'm angry about the shutdowns and what it's doing to the economy, but the virus is not as deadly as we thought it was, not even close. So that's certainly something to be really feel good about. I mean, it's not, obviously it's a virus, it's still killing people, but can you imagine? I mean, if the death toll right now was, if this disease were what we were led to believe it was in the early weeks of March, we could very easily be looking at a death toll of 300,000 or 400,000 people, 500,000 or 600,000 people, and that would rock the country, obviously even more than it already has been, substantially more. So, but let's also remember that there is always the chance that something really big will come through. The data, you haven't heard me talking about hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin here on the show, because all the data that I've been seeing recently is discouraging. Doesn't mean that it's definitive, but it's discouraging. So we are still waiting to, and I've also seen I've had some people send me, I had an MD actually send me a theory that there's been a movement away from the full testing of this merely because of all the politics against it. People said the politics were pushing it, but now there's a politics against it. So I need to dig into that more, but we clearly don't have a cure, or else we'd all know. Can we get 300 million doses of this, of a worthwhile vaccine by the end of 2020 this year? Do you believe in miracles? Some of you may have caught the line I managed to sneak in there so slyly right before we took a breather there. And yes, indeed, I did watch, on producer Mark's recommendation, the movie Miracle. And I will say, producer Mark, I think you've redeemed yourself from the Uncut Gems debacle, because Miracle was a very enjoyable film.
Of course it was. It's arguably the best sports movie ever.
I mean, so I started, it's funny you bring that up, producer Mark, because I started a thread last night, and this is controversial, and I'm not going to say that I'm necessarily right on this one, and we can producer Nick, you can write into me on text right now and tell me where you are on this one. But I said the greatest sports movies all time ranked, and we got almost 2,500 responses to this last night. I was just sitting on my couch watching. Actually, to be fair, I wasn't watching Miracle, but I put the 5 greatest movies, and so many people were saying that Miracle should be on the list. And then I said, well, producer Mark told me to watch it too. Now I got to watch it. So I watched it, and it's very, very good. And I think you could even say it would knock off number 5 on my list. I'd be fair and say it, or maybe move 5 to 4 and put Miracle on the list at the 4 spot. But so I'm very confident in my number 1. My number 1 on the list was Rocky. Now, You can make a case that Rocky 4 is also, but I view all the Rocky movies as kind of a continuation of Rocky 1, but I think Rocky 1 is the greatest sports movie of all time. That's my contention. Now people did not, producer Mark, can we agree that Rocky is one of the greatest sports movies of all time?
Of course, no doubt.
Okay. I will say that people did not, producer Nick says, I'll say too few lists had Sandlot on them. That's not even a sports movie. That's a kid's movie.
Oh, you're kidding, right?
The Sandlot is a sports movie the way that Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
What do they do during Sandlot, Buck?
I mean, I guess they're technically playing baseball, but they're like 10 years old, aren't they?
Who cares? The Mighty Ducks is a sports movie.
I mean, I do like the big dog, and the James Earl Jones makes a fantastic appearance in the movie. So there's that. I've never seen Mighty Ducks, so I will. Now on your rec, because you're good on the sports movie. You're 1 for 1 on sports movies. On, anxious guys selling jewels to NBA stars, you're 0 for 1. But you're 1 for 1 on the. But I had Rocky and producer Nick is weighing it too, because this got everyone fired up. I will say a few things that came to me as I was thinking about this last night. It is noteworthy, I think. I mean, it's noticeable, perhaps a better way of saying it. Noticeable how some sports don't have any good movies about them at all. Okay, there are really very few good. Now there are good documentaries, but I'm talking about scripted theatrical. So people would say like Hoop Dreams. Hoop Dreams is a great film for what it is, but it's not a movie in the sense of a theatrical release that is a fiction. Or that's a telling a story like that. I mean, it's really a documentary in film form. So I think that's up. You think about what's a great basketball movie. Hoosiers, certainly high on the list. A lot of people are throwing Hoosiers out there. No great tennis movies that I've ever. I mean, I'm a tennis player.
We're talking about sports movies. Buck.
Wow. The range is hot. Look at this. Producer Mark throwing lead down the range toward the tennis players. Okay, we got Rizzuto. Okay, wait. Rizzuto sent his list. All right, hold up. Rizzuto sent his list. I've got my list here that I need to read off first, and you can all throw tomatoes at me because I got lit up. I basically got dragged on Twitter for my top 5 sports movies list. Producer Mark agrees. Rocky, number 1. I put Rudy at number 2. Now, you don't have to say that Rudy is your second favorite sports movie of all time, but I do think that there's general agreement that Rudy is a great sports movie. Producer Mark, yay or nay?
Agree with you. Yes, of course.
Okay, great sports movie. I got a little more on the edge when I got to my number 3 here. Wait, and I know people are going to say Field of Dreams. Field of Dreams, go back and watch it again. I mean, I know it's a nice movie, but no one's like, let me watch Field of Dreams again. Come on. No way. Guy's building a baseball field out in the corn stalks or whatever. It makes no sense. Major League, I put at my number 3, and it's also, I think, a great comedy. Maybe not top 10, but I think you could argue Major League might be in the top 20 or 30 all-time best comedy films. I think Major League is a great movie. Really funny, holds up really well. The characters are excellent. I know I'm not saying you agree with it, producer Mark, but am I crazy yet? Because I'll tell you what people started.
You're not crazy. I think Major League is one of the better sports movies. I really did enjoy it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then I moved up on the list, and this is where people just started really like. I said Creed. I really liked the movie Creed. I thought Sylvester Stallone managed to be excellent in it. I thought it was going to be really bad, and it wasn't. So I put it at number 4. Now that's a controversial pick, and I understand that. People started to throw. Did you see that movie? Did you like that? Movie?
I love Creed. I think it's a great movie, but is the top 5 greatest sports movies of all time? Like, come on. I would throw that in with the Rocky series.
Yeah, it should be in with the Rocky.
Yeah, it's grouped in.
I would take a mulligan on this one. It should be in with the Rocky series. That's fair. I also put Friday Night Lights in there, which people really did not.
No.
They were like, you're out of your mind, Sexton. What is wrong with you? And that's also where I'll say that the 2 movies that came up the most that people were telling me, you got to have on the list here for the best sports movies of all time were Miracle, which I then went and watched last night because so many people, plus producer Mark, had already told me, and I told him I would. Stayed up to 1:30 in the morning to watch Miracle last night. Very good movie. One of Kurt Russell's best movies, and I'm actually a Kurt Russell fan.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Tombstone is his best. I'm probably then Big Trouble in Little China just because I love that movie, even though it's absurd. But I mean, it's a top 5 Kurt Russell. Producer Nick, I'm sure, has his top Kurt Russell films that he could send us to. But, speaking of producer Nick, he wrote in, he said, Raging Bull, Hoosiers, Rudy, Rocky, Sandlot. He gave an honorary mention to Cool Runnings. Producer Mark, you will have to deal with all the incoming on this one. What are your top 5 greatest sports movies of all time?
In no particular order.
Fine, in no order. We'll just give
I'm
you
going
the
to
top
go
5.
definitely Miracle. Remember the Titans. I'm shocked nobody has mentioned.
People mentioned that in my thread, but go ahead.
That is an amazing movie. Mighty Ducks has to be in there for me. I'm going to go with... I kind of want to put Moneyball in there. Have you ever seen it?
Yeah, I mean, but I feel like it's more of a sports management movie.
You're right. So that's
movie.
why I don't really want to put it in there, but it is a very good sports movie. I'll say Hoosiers, definitely, and I got to go Slapshot. I mean, I know my list is mostly
I was going to ask you, is Slapshot... I had Emerald Robinson from One America News wrote to me that I'm insane because I did not put Slapshot on there. I had never... I don't even think I had heard of this movie before.
Yeah, it is a cult classic for hockey fans.
People love this. Is a Paul Newman film.
Yeah, and his brother was in it too.
So what's interesting is there are good football movies, there are good hockey movies, there are good boxing. Now, boxing, I actually think you could take up. I think you could make a case that Rocky, and again, all of Rocky goes into Rocky 1 as far. Otherwise, it's just, it could be Rocky 1, Rocky 4, Rocky 2, Creed. I mean, you get all these, some of them are garbage. Like Rocky 5 was an abomination, but, but then you see some of the other. I think you can make a strong case. Cinderella Man is a fantastic movie for what it is. And I also think that The Fighter with Mark Wahlberg and the guy who plays Batman, Christian Bale, excellent movie. Excellent movie.
But they're not worthy of a top 5 list.
I'm glad people didn't do... Usually when you say the greatest movies, people do this nostalgia-based thing where they go, oh, the greatest sports movie of all time is Chariots of Fire. I'm like,
let's not go crazy there.
Exactly. Let's not... Just because it's old doesn't mean it's great, okay? Some old stuff is great, but no. Movies, it's very hard for movies to stand the test of time. That's why when they do, I think Casablanca, for example, there are movies that are still somehow magical today that were magical a long time ago. And I'm not talking about 20 years ago. I'm talking about, 50 years ago. There are some, but a lot of movies, the acting style has changed dramatically. Production value has changed dramatically. It's very tough for them to stay, as good as they were. And I think a lot of nostalgia pushes it. So interesting. Bull Durham also. Senator Ted Cruz came in. I can tell you, some people really got fired up about this thread. Senator Ted Cruz came in with how Bull Durham absolutely needs to be on this list. Producer Mark, what say you?
What about, I've never actually seen Bull Durham, but I'm going to go with, what about Happy Gilmore? Do we count that as a sports movie?
You have an Adam Sandler thing. That's what this really is.
All right, you're not telling me that 80s and 90s Adam Sandler isn't great.
It was funny, but I don't know if it's the greatest sports. I don't know if it's the greatest sports.
I was asking if you considered Happy Gilmore a sports movie.
No, I think it's no, because I don't think it's really about the sport at all. I think it's a straight up comedy. I don't think you'd really consider it. This is where you start getting into is Gladiator an action movie? There are these fuzzy zones, but it's anyway. I'm just saying you could also, if you were really into ice skating, you could be into The Cutting Edge, for example, from the 90s. I remember that one. With,
Tonya, everyone really liked recently.
That is a really good movie.
Yeah. I agree.
It's not a great,
not really a sports movie, but
sport. No, but it's really it's a character study. It's really not a great sports movie. It's not really about the sports. I'm just saying. This is my theory on these things. But anyway, so okay. I'm glad. So basically, you agree with me. Rudy and Rocky are great, and then you love a bunch of hockey movies. So we've settled it. Okay, fair enough. But I did watch Miracle. It was quite good, and I did love the accents of all the guys from Boston and the beef between Boston and Minnesota. By the way, I need to give a shout out to our wonderful station up in Minneapolis. But I got to tell you, the Boston accents were fantastic in it, which is always fun.
That's the best part about that movie.
Special guest for you all here on Friday. We are joined now by Ms. Nicole Arbor. She is a comedian and entrepreneur, owns a marketing agency. Some of you have probably seen her stuff on YouTube. Ms. Nicole.
Hey,
thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you are the first international voice, in a sense, that we're having join here to tell us about what it's like in quarantine, as you are amongst our brothers and sisters from the north up in Canada right now. How are things going up there? I mean, is Toronto locked down the same as New York locked down, but everyone's nicer and everything's cleaner?
Well, exactly that, but I think that's a derivative of everyone got $2,000. So what's going on right now in Canada is all of the citizens are getting $2,000 each per month, which kind of makes people not as upset. So it makes a lot of sense. And yeah, we're all on lockdown. Still, we're all locked down. The stores are starting to open as of today, which is dope. But yeah, we're locked down. And companies are getting 75% of people's pay incentive. So the government is paying up to 75% of people's wages, which again is awesome, so that they don't get laid off.
Now, I know Canadian dollars aren't quite worth what American dollars are, but it seems like you guys are still
money. Yeah.
It seems like you guys are still, isn't like the Queen of England still on your money? But anyway, it seems like
I don't know why she's there.
It seems like you guys are spending. Oh, I mean, look, we are in America. We're just like, we're just, bills out of helicopters right now. But is anyone up there concerned in the great north of Canada that things might be getting a little bit too pricey if you're paying people $2,000 a month to not do anything?
Yeah, there's a very troubling interview that came out with our finance minister on Friday. I'm not sure when this guy's airing. He couldn't answer a single simple question about the Canadian finances. And he switched to some crazy buzzwords and every single time. He didn't know a single factor stat. So at this point, I declared, I'm like, I'm not a liberal anymore. I can't be. You guys are too stupid. I just can't be associated with this crew. You're printing funny money. It's monopoly money. It's nice that the people are taken care of, but you guys realize this is real money, right? And they can't answer that question. So who knows? Maybe we're going to be living off Timbits and hockey for a while. I have no idea.
There's always the barter economy where, the prettiest seashell will get you, potatoes or whatever. We could go back to that. If we keep playing with money the way we are, we may be in some real trouble. We definitely would be in some real trouble. It's a question of how bad the trouble will be.
I consider myself a pretty seashell, so maybe I'll be okay. Yeah.
Tell me this.
That's what OnlyFans is for. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, this is a conservative radio audience. I don't think they have any idea what I think very few of them know what OnlyFans is. Although my understanding is that for the entrepreneurial out there, the amount of money that is going to that while people are in lockdown has skyrocketed. And like Tinder, for example, and some of those things has collapsed.
Yeah, I believe. Well, those of you who don't know, OnlyFans, they're actually expanding. It's basically like a Patreon, but a lot of glamour models went on it and are doing sexy things, but they are expanding into producing their own entertainment and stuff like that now. They made $700 million for their influencers within the last year, and they take 20% of that, so that's a pretty dope business.
That is amazing. I did not know that was the kind of money that they were bringing in on that. That is astonishing.
Dropping the dollars.
Yeah. Look, I mean, this is why people are all talking about the stock market and how if you want to go back to work, it's because you just care about the stock market prices. Well, actually, I mean, if you own like Netflix, Google, and Amazon, you're still doing pretty darn well. Actually, things haven't really changed all that much. It's the other businesses where people make stuff. And if you're in the airline industry, if you're in the restaurant industry, if you're in, anything that has to do with retail, you're in the midst of the retail apocalypse. What's the mood like, though? I mean, one of the things, I know that you spent a lot of time here in the States, but now you've been up in Canada, your family's Canadian. What's the mood like for Canadians right now about the lockdowns? Because we're finally starting to have in the blue states people say, this is nuts. We can't keep doing this.
There's been a lot of polite anger. The Canadian anger is not the same as American anger. It's been polite. And now we're starting to relax it. But I agree with the outrage that's going on in the blue states now. Like that barber in Michigan that opened up his shop, that's what needs to happen. And I think we need a little bit more outrage moving forward because no one's going to be there to bail your business out. It's not going to happen. If you are a small business owner, I'm the daughter of a blue collar worker. We grew up with a family business, a small family business. No one's going to bail you out. There's going to be nothing to go back to after the lockdown if you don't open. And the stats just don't back it up. As we know, it doesn't back it up that it's worth staying locked down anymore. So open, deal with the ticket, deal with whatever happens. You have to support your family. And That's what I think people need to do. And Canadians, you too. It's okay to get a little angry.
Even the Canadians are getting a little bit upset about this. That means that clearly the government outreach has gotten crazy. I wanted to also.
We do this. We shake our fist.
Is that really a thing? I have spent a shockingly little time in Canada. I think I've been there. I've only been there really for camping trips where I didn't see any human beings. And so I know what your wolves and bears look like. That's about it.
Well, that makes sense for why when you made a tweet about your favorite sports movies of all time, there was no Mighty Ducks in it, which really upset me.
Okay,
frankly. Mighty Ducks.
There's a perfect transition. We were talking about this right before. And I didn't realize we had like senators weighing in on that. People went nuts on the sports movies. So let's come back.
Awesome.
Yeah, let's come back and weigh in on some sports movies and also some other ways that one can keep oneself entertained and positive in quarantine. We're speaking to Nicole Arbour, comedian, entrepreneur, online personality. We'll be back in just a second.